So welcome to our annual meetup. I'm going to kick things off and welcome everyone and share my screen just to get the agenda going. Hold on one second. I'm going to share my screen. And it would be great if everyone can just confirm that they can see the screen. Just give me a thumbs up, a hello, a yes. Great. Okay. Oh, I've got someone sending me a note, a chat. Oh, thanks, Laura. Appreciate that. So as you can imagine, it's always challenging because we're running things and managing it. Welcome. Today is the 21st of April, and we planned this to be a post-tax event, and now we're in the middle of tax season. So I'm sorry, we didn't feel like we wanted to cancel it. But then again, we understood that some folks would be busy managing the completion of personal taxes. So today's a really special day in my mind because it speaks to what our agenda is today. I'll get to the announcements today, but we're focused on marketing. We've invited, we've included Caitlin, who leads our marketing efforts here at LeanLaw, and she'll be leading a conversation about marketing. You can see her waving. And but before we get to that, I want to do a few little quick announcements. We have upcoming another series in our Lauren Fogelman webinar. It's a 5-part series, and this one session, which will be May 13th, I'll put a link in the chat session, is the confidentially answering the question, what's your hourly rate? We just did a really few great series. I have the link here. Let me see if I can pull it up. I had the link right at my fingertips. Well, I don't want to be clumsy and do this, so let me put that away and go back to my deck. I'm trying to run too many screens at once. And so that has been a very productive conversation. If you didn't get to it, it certainly can be recorded or will be recorded, and it'll be there for you folks to review, even if you couldn't do it before. And so I wanted to also today show off a few little pictures of 2 little new features in LeanLaw and show you folks some things that we're doing and spend some time, and then we'll get to the heart of the conversation, which is our marketing conversation. So I'm going to stop that share and start this screen share. And again, everyone should see LeanLaw. So the 3 features that I'm showing, everyone see my screen and see LeanLaw here and there? I'm moving it up and down. Yeah, thumbs up. Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. So the 3 things I want to show you is adjustments, our new client user interface, and then a few little additional features with compensation tracking, and probably about 10 minutes worth of work. And again, we want this conversation to be interactive. So if there's any questions, please let me know. I'm just going to it's not meant to master these. It's more to just introduce the concepts. And then of course, we'll get to the marketing section in a short while. So I'm in LeanLaw. We're an anytime, anywhere application. Excuse me. I happen to be in a Chrome browser. And I'm going to start, it's a little out of sequence, but I'm going to start with this new client interface. So one of the things you'll see in LeanLaw that you've never seen before, and as one of the founders, I've always said to myself, why the heck do we not have the word client in our main interface? And the question came, how do clients get a financial snapshot of a particular, how does an attorney get the financial snapshot of a client in a click? And so we created this bucket, this tab called, sorry, I'm emitting people at the same time, that you now see called clients. And so a user can come in and see the clients that they have signed to them, and they might ask some very simple questions. So if I go to this Coastal Motor client, we now see an interface. And of course, we see the contact information up here, Jim, Jamie, contact, and we can edit some of that data by just clicking edit. And remember, if we change something in LeanLaw, that client information will change in QuickBooks. But what we immediately see is an overview tab. So we can see, most importantly, we're trying to answer a few questions. What do I have yet to bill a client? So what's WIP, our work in progress? And we can see here the contributors. So these are all initials of users and the number of hours and the value of that time. We can see the total time, the total hours, the total value. So that's all real time, any snapshot. And this is what is billable. This isn't what is billed, which means it was put on an invoice, of course, what was collected. So the second thing we can see is the load on expenses. This can be very important for contingent focus matters. I'm just looking at the chat. Lee, I'll get to that question. Lee asked, when will it show up? It'll be released. It'll be in product next week. We end a 2-week sprint, and it'll be in product the following week. And then we see fixed fees. Any fees are associated in total. And again, I'm looking at the client level here. On the right, we see some QuickBooks accounting information. What is the AR balance? What is any trust money? This is a weird trust account that shouldn't be that number 250, and then when the last payment was. And then we have specific reports to this client, productivity reports by month, a trust report, or even a summary report. A summary report is a sort of comprehensive report, and right now it's broken up into all these details of time and expenses. But we're going to actually modify that and make it a little bit more easier to use. So if I go back to the client and I go back to Coastal, that's the first levels. I can see these various reports. Now on the left, I see the actual 4 matters that make up this client. So I could click on any one of them and now see the narrow focus of that one client. So instead of looking at all of the clients at the client view, I'm looking at the financials of that one client, of that one matter for the client. So that's kind of what that's one of the pieces of the puzzle here that we introduced, is this client interface. The second part of this is billing activity. So they can actually see, including trust by checking this box, all of the financial transactional activity for that matter. So you see, these invoices are in the review process, meaning they've not been sent. They've been drafted and they're in review. These are invoices that have been, this one has been paid, this one still owes $100 and so on. And if you click this, this would actually open up and allow you to print that invoice. If I, again, click the trust button, I can see that we had an expense with the trust account, we wrote a check, and there was a journal entry here. So that billing activity is now right at the fingertips for the attorney. So that's the client page that we introduced into the LeanLaw environment. The next thing I want to show you is what we call write-downs. So I'm going to go into billing, and I'm going to go into a review tab and look at a particular invoice. So again, billable is time, expenses, and fees that are in the system that have not been drafted into an invoice. Billed are these. This has been billed, and I know there's some context to the verb as if it's past tense, but these means it's been drafted onto an invoice. And as I open up an invoice, and now I click into it and I see a line item that I say, you know what, that client's not going to pay that 1.9. This is not a mistake. I want to be 100% clear about this. This is not 1.9 and it should have been 19. I'm going to change it to 19. This is 1.9 and I know the client is not going to pay 1.9. So I'm going to bring it down to an hour. That's a write down or an adjustment to it. That is not a mistake. I want to be clear because we don't fix mistakes like that at this point with this tool. We just are writing down. So what that means is the client will see 1 hour of bill time on the invoice, but LeanLaw will track a 1.9 and write down is not the right word, but we will adjust the 0.9 and make it now recordable and reportable. So we're recording and reporting it. So you can see by writing that down, I can save that. That now is 1 hour billed, but underneath behind the scenes, we see the adjustment. I'm going to save that and say, well, where does that matter? Why does that matter? And where would I see that? And it's in any write down. Well, under reports, I now have these 2 new reports called a timekeeper productivity and a client productivity, 2 different ways of looking at the same data. So I've filtered this for this month. I'm going to just make it a little bit broader and say this year. And this is showing me all of the time. So billed, tracked hours, adjustments, billable total, non-billable total, total hours, the value of the tracked hours, the value of what was billable, and the delta in between. And what you're looking for here from a productivity standpoint is, hey, who's getting their time written down? And you might want to go in and look at, Mike Ross, he's got 28% of his time marked down. I can click into that and I can see what clients that was associated. So it's this one client, and even do another click and see what time entry. So there's 3 data layers that account for this sort of productivity lens. I start at the very top. Whoops, sorry, wrong one. I top at the start was this timekeeper productivity. and I can see all of the hours. And so I can see the value of the total time on a per user basis. Again, if I click in, I can see it by client, and I can drill in and go in and see it even more specific. And of course, I can expand that and show it by matter as well by just clicking that matter tab. So the new feature was the adjustment feature. That is not a feature to fix something. That is a feature, meaning a mistake. It's a feature to write something down. The last thing I want to show you, and this is still behind the lines, but for those clients that are doing our revenue by attorney tracking, we've added a new feature that we can feature flip, meaning we can make it available. It's not to market yet, but it's essentially fully functional and it's being tested, which is called distribution. So for those firms that use an eat what you kill model, or are heavily compensated on either origination or on what they work, they get paid for, there is a function where we need to take invoices and distribute them. We take the money. So there's one thing about collecting it. That's we've collected in the accounting process, but then we need to now distribute it back to the actual attorneys and see those distributions. So what we've created here is a little workflow around that. And the idea is that I can pick a period. So I could say, let's look at all time, or let's look at a certain invoices. And these are all payments. So we can see these are all invoices that have been paid. And we can say, let's pick a status. Have they not been distributed, to distributed, or distributed? So we can come in here and say, these are distribution dates I've already created. So I can come in here and say, I want to pick and look at the March of this year. So here are the invoices that were paid in March. And I can collect them and say, create a distribution. See if I do this right. I'm sorry, assign to a distribution. And this is either assigning it, I guess there's a create. I'm sorry, I'm new in doing this, but this create should create a thing, but I'm going to assign them. Let's just say I'm assigning it to an existing one, which would be this one, March 21. So I've now assigned them. I've given them a distribution date. I then can go in and make sure that I distribute it. Okay, so I'm going to distribute it to the various people in there. And once I've distributed it, meaning I've actually written the checks and delivered it to those clients or to those users, I can say distributed. So I can tag them as distributed by just clicking here and saying assigned. Gosh, I'm not pitching. Sorry, people keep coming in late and I'm having to add them. It seems to be Brandy who keeps pinging me. So Brandy, I'm not sure if you're getting in or not. So the idea, and I'm not demoing this and I apologize, but this is a back end that allows you to manage those distributions. And why it's really important is this. I'm going to go back to the reports and show it from the other end. When we look at the revenue by attorney report, we can look at it typically by date. What did I earn in a period? But another lens now is to say, when did we distribute it? So if I want to look at the March 30th distribution point, I can actually then tag in the dollars back into what was distributed. So they can look at it both by a period, what did I earn over a certain period, but then they can also look at it based on distribution. How did the firm actually give you the money? And there's two different lenses for that. Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth is taking care of admitting people. So in a clumsy way of showing you it, under the billing, there is a workflow to tag things to a specific period to make sure that you've gone through every payable invoice and you've then distributed it on a specific period. On the attorney view, they can see the distribution by a specific date and look at the monies that they would have expected to receive on that distribution. So on that February 21st distribution, Fred would have expected to receive $10,440. That may be different than his February numbers because maybe the way the payments came in, or maybe the way the firm decides to actually distribute the money, it's not always exactly on the month. So that's the attorney compensation features. One other thing I wanted to show you very quickly that I'm not sure everyone's seen is this receivables report. It's a really simple thing, but we added it. It basically allows you to say for the matters that you're responsible for, what is the AR? And it shows that aging. And this is mirrored, of course, directly from QuickBooks. And it's a simple little sort function. And I can see, okay, Coastal owes me the most money and it's aging the longest. So I think that sometimes gets overlooked as a really nice AR tool for the attorney, and that it's readily available. And you're going to see in the next month some pretty significant changes to this reporting page. We've kind of run out of real estate in this method, and we have this big gray area that we're not leveraging, and we're going to change the whole visualization of the reports that's being worked on. Any questions on all of that before we kind of get into the meat of our presentation? And I'm sorry that distribution demo, I've only demoed it once or twice before, so I'm a little clumsy in learning how to demo it, but I hope you get the concept of it. Okay, no questions, so let's move on. All right, Caitlin, I'm going to do you want me to run the deck, Caitlin? You want me to run it for you?
Sure.
Okay, so let me move this over. So Caitlin, I'll let you introduce yourself and take it away, and I'll share the screen out so that you can just tell me when to move on the slide.
Awesome. So my name is Caitlin. First of all, I was hired onto the LeanLaw team in February, and my title is Marketing Director. Actually, if you could go back a slide, I have an intro slide for myself. Yeah, there we go. I was hired onto LeanLaw in February as the marketing director. Very excited to be here, and I'm helping with the Accounting Pros program as well. A little bit of my background, not to bore you, but I started in journalism. My first job was actually as a newspaper reporter. Meandered my way into marketing, and I've been working in print digital marketing campaigns for a bunch of different industries for about the past 8 years. And the key takeaways that I'm going to be aiming for with this are, I'm assuming that most of you are building or maintaining your own websites to some extent, and you might be learning as you go and probably not particularly well versed in graphic design like myself. I'm a writer, and the design and digital things are what I had to pick up on the go. So if that is your experience with this, I very much understand and am sympathetic to that. So I'm going to give you sort of my tips for DIY website maintenance and maybe a few industry insights that you haven't heard before, hopefully.
And I want to make one little point. I'm going to jump to the next screen, Caitlin, is that
Sure.
I coached Caitlin and said, listen, for this group mostly, what we're trying to do is referral marketing. Sometimes we get this instinct that we're going to do a lot of SEO, or we're going to go out and do these different types of campaigns, but really fundamentally for the size of businesses that we typically see within our accounting community, referral marketing is really what you're trying to get. You're trying to influence someone to make a phone call or engage and look at your website so that you hopefully can get an interaction with them. And if it goes well, that interaction is in alignment with the type of client you want to work with. If it's not, you get someone from some different niche of industry that's not working, and that's a problem that you got to fix, but a lead is still a step in the process. So we're not trying to say you're going to become this branded online social goddess or something like that. It's really meant to say facilitate referral marketing. So I just want to say that I coached her that way in this presentation a bit.
Sure, thank you. So the key thing that will, if you're starting from the top down with a good website, what it all revolves around is the value proposition. So the WordStream is an online ad service. They've been in the industry for some time. And so I just sort of grabbed their description to start with, which is that it tells prospects, leads, any potential client, in this case, a law firm, why they should do business with you rather than your competitors, and perhaps what makes the benefits of your product or service crystal clear from the outset. So my first example of an accounting business getting this really right is Less Accounting. Jonathan, if you want to click on that, I don't know if it will open the link, but it will just take you to their homepage. The slide has their, yeah, there it is. So the slide has their value proposition. It's front and center. And as you're maintaining your website, this is probably where the template is going to offer you a headline or some type of big front and center text. That is really where you want to put this value proposition. Notice how short it is and
so hold on, what do we
straightforward.
Hey, Caitlin, is smart
Yeah,
bookkeeping powered by professional, backed by technology? That's the statement we're supposed to be looking at?
yes,
Okay.
correct. So that's the value proposition. Um, and what I want to do is sort of break down what they're implying with this. So what they're saying that they're not saying. It's easy. It makes it friendly. It's very simple. So what they're demonstrating with this value proposition is that accounting is scary, numbers are scary, and taxes are scary. And we understand this. So we have smart bookkeeping, we're the experts, we have technology to back it up, and you don't have to think about it at all. In fact, if you look up at their logo in the top left corner, what I love is that it is a smiling, restful face. So even the imagery of this brand and this company is relax, effectively, we've got this. So if you can identify with how you think your website visitor is feeling when they're looking for an accountant, and in particular, somebody at a law firm is feeling or problems that they're concerned about, right off the bat, you set a tone with this potential client that you get it, that you're sympathetic to their problems and you're going to work through a solution together. So there's, and then there's a pop-up. You can go back to the slide now, Jonathan, thank you. So in a nutshell, that is the value proposition, and that is just kind of a high level how this informs the whole way you're going to present yourself through your website. The second example that I provided is one that I wrote myself, not to toot my own horn, but to kind of break down the actual statement itself a little bit more. You want to identify quantifiable results if you can. So when I was writing one for this particular accounting partner of ours, they have more than 800 law firms that they've helped. This gets people's attention because it has numbers, obviously, and that's a quantifiable measure of the value you provide. You have expertise. I've helped more than 800 law firms. The other key aspect is the result. If you can provide a numeric result, amazing. I increased this law firm's profitability by X%. That's a fantastic, fantastic value proposition. So I didn't have that kind of number when I was writing this one. So I kind of had to keep it a little more general and say, translating into better attorney practice and firm profitability. But that's still a result that you are positioning front and center on your website, which says to your potential client, I know what you're looking for. I get how you're feeling. It's right here. So that is really, that's the meat of your value proposition. So I can move on to the next slide.
I want to kind of say one quick thing, and I know you're going to hit it later, so I apologize, Caitlin,
Yeah,
for
no, go
butting
ahead.
in. But I think what we get confused on is the value of what you do versus what you do. And I think too many times, and I'm sure you're going to speak to it, but too many times people start by saying, I'm an accounting firm, and and start getting into what you do. And sometimes it becomes so obvious. I go to people's sites and it's like, yes, of course we know you do HR and payroll, but you're dealing with an attorney, and when that attorney is looking at your site, they're a sophisticated person looking for a sophisticated solution. And if you already go down into what you do and there's no value, you kind of lost them. You lost a moment. You lost an opportunity. And I think that this understanding the value in the construction of this one sentence is really beneficial as you think about your own practice. But go ahead.
Well, actually, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Jonathan, because a key thing that I didn't bring up yet is something that I know we've brought up to LAPs before, which is identifying a niche market. So knowing exactly who your audience is and who you are speaking to, who you are appealing to is very important. And I know that is, you've kind of already done that by identifying law firms, but the more you know about a law firm, the more you can write a great value proposition. So it's knowing your audience is a key element of this. And so, yeah, to break it down a little bit further and expand on that clarification Jonathan made. It's really easy and common to throw just a list of your skills and services front and center and confuse the value proposition with that. It's about the value you offer in addition to your skills. Why are your skills going to make this law firm's life better or this law firm's business better? They great, they'll know you can do plenty of different things, but it's about the value of applying those skills to the individual law firm. Another aspect that many of you probably already have on your sites, or that you see on pretty much any business site, is reviews from happy clients. If you can put any type of validation from a law firm client, you may not have any yet, but if you do, by all means, make that a prominent part of your homepage. Case studies are similar, but just to sort of clarify, a review is a law firm or a client writing in and just the feedback that you can put up on your site, perhaps under a star rating. A case study would be something more along the lines of perhaps a blog post, an email, a white paper, a sort of lengthier piece of content where you tell a story about a client. If it was a particularly complex issue and a review just doesn't capture it, write a longer piece, elaborate on the details. The more information and the more specific you can get, the better for somebody who's researching you online. Certifications and badges are awesome. This is much more, it's sort of the opposite of a case study. If somebody is researching you and wants to dig in deep and learn about really detailed technical aspects of what you can do for a client, the case study is your friend. If you're thinking more, I want at a glance, just very quick, as they scroll down my page, certifications and badges are how you do that. Again, the more the better, but I would worry less about partner brands, or perhaps like the logos of law firm clients you work with, unless you're presenting that in a review. Last but not least,
go ahead.
Oh, wait, go ahead,
Sorry,
Jonathan.
no, well, go ahead. You finish. I'm going to go back and add 2 points.
Okay. Last but not least, niche memberships. You've already made that improvement by joining the LAPs. And if you haven't, please join. Any type of LinkedIn group or Facebook group. I know that social media has a bad reputation, that is well earned, but it is a good opportunity for professional networking. And it is a great place to just get ideas and network for, potential clients. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Well, I was going to say 2 things. One is, Lauren Fogelman just did a whole webinar with me on niche and specialties, and it was fabulous. And I put the link up in the chat session, and it talked about niche. A niche might be law, but a specialty might be attorney compensation or trust accounting, or contingent settlements. And it's the idea that the more expertise that you can get and convey, the easier that sales conversation, the easier your workflows are, the stronger command you'll have in your business. So niching isn't just about selling. Niching is about lifestyle and making a more profitable business. And it goes a lot in terms of attracting the right client. And the second thing with case studies, case studies is a really big word. You can also just explain a really positive interaction that you had with a client and what that life cycle was like. And what that does is it conveys competency, it articulates that there's a workflow, and it helps the user understand, okay, this is how I work with you. So a lot of times we think and get intimidated by the concept of case studies because it has to be this like beginning and middle and end, and there was this heroic, great thing that happened in these key learnings. But a lot of it can just be about, I want to give you a case study about how I onboarded a client and what they were like before and what they were like after, and what were some of the steps in between. And if you can do that in an effective way, it tells such a huge story about how you work and how that can be meaningful to the other users. The other thing I wanted to say really, really super quickly, when you talked about user personas, so this is an example of like LeanLaw user persona. We actually went and said, who is the person that is one of our people that we're interacting with from a sales perspective. And we outlined not just who they were, but like all these things about them so that we understood who these folks did, what they wanted, what their behaviors were, what their emotions were. And we did that for all of the people who we interact with from a sales perspective, the outside accounting professional, the office manager, the general manager. So I just wanted to share that, you know, these personas are so helpful in understanding who it is that your organization's interacting with. So when you actually have that sales contact with them, you know what it is that you need to say to that person. Okay, I'm done talking.
No, that's great. Actually, that's a perfect segue. If you could go back into the other half of that slide,
Sorry.
just very quickly to tie off everything we're saying about the value proposition specifically. So it should be positioned front and center on your website, and it will inform a lot about the rest of the organization and will give you really good ideas and kind of help guide you with deciding how to fill your site with content, which is exactly what you want. So as you're approaching the task of writing a value proposition, first of all, know that it's very difficult. If we get to picking apart my own website, I will demonstrate exactly how difficult it is with how bad my own website value proposition is. And I am a writer. So first of all, know that it's difficult, but remember that what you're trying to accomplish is just demonstrating, telling a story, which Jonathan used earlier. You're telling a story about how you know what your client needs from you, you know what they're looking for, you know what pains they have, you know what fears they have. It's okay to tap into the emotional or the psychological aspect of your client, because, you know, it is stressful to have this entire aspect of their practice that they know little to nothing about and have no time to really dive into in the way that you do. Demonstrating your value is basically saying, I've got this for you in some fashion, and really tailoring it to the kind of person you want to work with, or, you know, as Jonathan demonstrated, the persona is the industry term for that. Go on to the next slide.
And I would say one thing, I want to say two things. One is everything flows downstream from your value proposition, number one. And number two, you're always iterating it, and it's going to be awful the first time you do it. And you just keep learning and learning and iterating on it. And it gets better and easier.
So these are the tools that I fall back on through the years and highly recommend for anybody doing their own website.
Well, that's a question. Should they do their own website, or should they hire someone to do it?
Well, as you get into this, you will know immediately what you want to outsource and what you feel comfortable tinkering with and trying yourself. I will say that Wix, Squarespace, and WordPress, which are those logos that you see in the left column, make it very easy to assemble a template and put content into your site. It's a good step-by-step process, and you
Even
probably
even WordPress. I always understood WordPress.
You don't like WordPress?
Well, I always found WordPress to be more technical than Wix, Squarespace, or Weebly.
No, that's not my experience. Squarespace is definitely my favorite. That's the one that my own website is built through. So
all the
it's
cool
by
kids,
far
all the cool kids are on Squarespace.
It's the most intuitive for me, but to each their own. And I've worked most extensively with Squarespace and WordPress. Dribble, and I know that that logo is kind of difficult to read. It's Dribble with 3 B's. Dribble is effectively a Pinterest or basically an album of designers posting their work. So one thing you can do is shop for a designer here. It's similar to Upwork, which is another freelance hub for graphic designers. If you do decide I need to outsource this.
Does everyone know what that means? Hold on one second. Does everyone know what that means? Upwork and Dribble, an outsourced contractor? I want to be really clear because it's not intuitive to everyone. We get it, Caitlin, because we interact with that.
Okay.
So I'm going to be more specific. Upwork and Dribble are essentially the eBays for independent contractors. So Upwork is an exchange where independent contractors that have services put up their, either put up their abilities or you put up a job. Upwork in particular, I have a job, I want to do a 5-page website, and people come in and will bid on it. And there's a social proof in the sense of other people who've hired these folks. You can narrow it to say, I want only people in the United States, or I want people from all over the world, or I want people just from Latin America. And then they also give you a medium to monitor the production of the work and pay for it. So it is a full charge life cycle for you, small business owner, to put out any task across anything. It really almost from administrative all the way through technical and full creative. So you could hire someone to do list gen for you. You could hire someone to do outsource salesing for you. You could hire someone to do a website. And I'm thinking of Upwork because I know that tool better. And it is a highly, highly effective place to find resources to solve problems in your business. And I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that. And the company's called Upwork, and I will put it in the chat, the one that I'm thinking of.
Sure.
I'll put it in the chat so everyone has a list to it. But go on, Caitlin. I didn't want to gloss over that because it's important.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for clarifying too. And Upwork is where is a great place to find a developer. So if you want to build a custom website, meaning you don't want to go to Wix, Squarespace, or WordPress and fill in one of their templates, Upwork is where you would find someone that could build you a website from scratch. Dribble is a great place because actual designers themselves are also going in and looking for inspiration. So I like to recommend Dribble specifically for graphic designers because the whole experience is really, really well done. Last but not least, Canva is my favorite tool for the actual do-it-yourself website manager, where you can build your own graphics, you can build your own creative elements, and it is free. So you don't have to pay anybody. You just go in and it's like Photoshop. It's a creative, it's like what is called a creative suite, where you can download images, you can share images. I linked it if we want to click into it and just demonstrate, Jonathan. It'll show you the homepage and give you an idea. So again, excellent value proposition designed for everyone. If you scroll over or go over to the top left next to home, there's a drop down for templates. So that gives you just an idea of all the things that you can build in Canva for free. It looks very professional. So if, of course there's a paid subscription option as well. So, don't get intimidated by all the pretty bells and whistles. It looks really cool.
How does this, hey, Caitlin, how does this get converted into a website?
You would design this image and then place it in your template.
Got it. So these are elements that creatively then get thing. Okay.
Exactly.
The one thing one kind of point I want to say is that you could even go to Upwork though and hire someone to sort of do 9/10 of a Squarespace or Wix website, and then you could control the last 10%. So it's not just for WordPress or for custom sites. I've actually solicited Wix and Squarespace like vendors on there, and there's a herd of them, and that can be a good tactic too for low cost on a Squarespace environment, using a template and Canva and some other tools to get you 90% of the way there, and then you still own the last 10% and can control it moving forward, versus having a developer do it and you're always going back to the developer.
Awesome. Ready for the next slide. So last, a few final thoughts, because these last couple of slides probably don't warrant the amount of time the first few did. Some good website habits just to check your website's health. It's just good to log in every month, see how it's doing if you're not already. If you're not on your own website all the time, which I am not, it's good to check it And if you are struggling with ideas, look
Hold
up your
on.
competitors.
What are we checking when you say health check? What are they looking for?
Make sure that every element is working properly, first of all. Make sure that anything that is linked, any PDF document, any form, contact, fill, all of the interactive parts of your website that potential clients will be touching or going through. It's always good to make sure that they're working properly on a regular basis.
And in particular, any call to action. So the worst thing you want is you have a call to action saying, contact me, and that link's not working, right? Something like that.
Exactly. Make sure, so make sure all the functional elements of your site are running properly.
Okay.
Competitor research is a good idea if you need inspiration and you want to see perhaps how other people appealing to law firms specifically like to organize their information, what kind of imagery they're using. Go in with that lens of how are they appealing to lawyers? What is their value proposition? What sort of value add are they appealing to for a law firm?
The augment that is you can also look at software companies like LeanLaw and Clio and whatnot, and look at how we position communications to lawyers. Because we're basically saying, hey, we're your financial tool, or we're a tool to help you with your finances or run your practices. And so there's a lot of science behind that messaging. And there's easily opportunities to, I wouldn't say steal, but be influenced, and there's no problem taking a line from Clio. We would be welcome to use it. But there's content positioning and strategy that are on those sites because you're chasing the same client. Slightly different value proposition and certainly service, but at the same time, you're appealing to their fears, you're appealing to their desires, their wants.
Absolutely. So when you do make updates to your site, it's always a good idea to make sure that images and text in particular are arranged properly on different devices. If you are using a service like Squarespace, WordPress, Wix, Weebly, that's called mobile responsive design, and that whole platform takes care of it for you. If you have your own web developer, they should provide that as well, but make absolutely sure. And when you do make changes to your website, look at the website on your phone, on your iPad, on your desktop, kind of like that little image there at the bottom. And then last but not least, obviously, test processes yourself goes back to the health check. Just make sure every interactive part of your website is working, especially the contact form, and ask your friends for feedback. I get great feedback from just a second pair of eyes. It doesn't have to be another marketer or industry professional. In fact, if it's, one of my parents, even better. I want everything to make sense to someone that has no background knowledge whatsoever. That's a great way to test your website and your messaging.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much time we usually leave for questions.
Well, we can, I was going to stop and ask some questions. Does anyone have any specific questions or comments before we jump in? Because we'd love to have them. You can either just speak or chat. And if you don't, then we've got some more content to talk about. So any questions off the bat?
And specifically, does anybody have a question about their own website? Is there something that's bothering you that you can't figure out that, needs work that maybe the rest of us can put our heads together on?
Anyone? Come on, all your websites are perfect and you feel great about it. I don't believe that. I know LeanLaw is not. I can tell you that, for gosh sakes.
We actually just did a complete overhaul of our website, and it actually went live this past Monday. But one of the things that we didn't add that we need to go back and do is the case studies, because we've had some real interesting, trust account cleanups that we've done, which have, had some really good results for the client in the long run. So, yeah.
Karen, how are you thinking about presenting that? Meaning, is it just text? Is it video? Are you going to speak? What's your thoughts about how you present that?
Well, as you can see, I keep my camera off, so I don't like to be on camera. Probably text for right now.
Mhm. You know, you could do audio too. I mean, you can do, people are getting very used to listening on computers, and you know, that
That's
scripted
true.
could be
And
interesting if you're
yeah,
uncomfortable.
and my team keeps telling me that, and my coach keeps telling me I need to do that. I've got to get more comfortable behind the camera. I've got to get comfortable talking to an audience. You know, when I'm doing these consultations, I'm really good with the one-on-one, but it's talking to an audience and I tend to talk really fast when I'm nervous. So
Can you just, and this is a little bit of a digression, but I know that you just adopted a coach and you just brought it up. So I thought maybe you'd talk about why you did that and how that experience has been for you. Cause you and I had talked, and then all of a sudden that happened. So do you mind sharing just a little bit about how that was of value? I know this isn't marketing, but Karen was on the road to rebuild her website and do marketing tactics. And maybe you did all of those, but the coach, I know you decided, hey, stop, I want to get this coach involved. So could you talk a little bit about that, Karen?
Actually, we hired Lauren. We're working with Lauren Fogelman. I started with her, I want to say about 6, maybe 8 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we did put the whole website marketing and all that on hold. And after looking at my 12-year-old website, she said, yes, you definitely need to update that. So that was something that was happening in the background, but the sessions, as a matter of fact, I have a 4:00 session with her today. And I'm so excited because I have like a lot of good news to give her. Has just been amazing. She's pushed me out of my comfort zone when it comes to pricing and asking for money and how to, put my packages together. And I'll tell you, it's been night and day. My staff's kind of freaking out because we got all this work coming in now. But just in the last 4 weeks, we've brought in an additional, gosh, let me think off the top of my head, 10, probably around 25,000 in revenue in 1 month.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing you say is, and this, whether you get it from a coach or whether you come yourself, the clarity that Lauren helped you create in terms of the business was essential, I would imagine. I'm putting words in your mouth, in you knowing what you want to say on your website. Is that correct?
Well, exactly, because one of the things that Lauren focuses on is understanding your value and portraying that value to the client. That's key. That's what the clients want to hear. They don't want to hear, okay, I'm going to reconcile your account. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. They want to know, what is the value you bring and what results are you going to bring them? And that's where she shifted my mindset, was from task oriented to result oriented.
Right. And the reason I wanted I kind of suspected that was the answer. I kind of wanted to bring that into the group because, when Caitlin goes back to the very first thing, which is you've got to articulate your value proposition. If you don't know it in your own head, how can you ever think someone's going to interpret your value? And if you really recognize your value, Karen, as you said, you feel you have a different platform to charge more, create better process, create better outcomes for your clients, and realize your worth, right? Realize your self-worth. So has anyone else, I'm curious, has anyone else worked with a coach or anyone like that to help get that structure, or has that been successful for anyone else? So if you're, I don't mean to toot Lauren's horn. Lauren and I developed a friendship and we've been doing these, but I will tell you, sometimes those webinars are a little like, I don't know, it's pie in the sky because you don't get in the weeds, but there's a lot of really, really good nuggets to pull out of that come back to what you see Karen saying. I'm clear about what my business is. I'm seeing my value. I'm being pushed out of my comfort zone and I'm getting results in the business, right? That's what she's trying to facilitate, whether it's Lauren or whether you do it on your own. At LeanLaw right now, there's a book called Traction, Traction, the entrepreneur's operating system, and we're adopting that in terms of how we work. It's not quite about value, but it's helping us understand and be in alignment from a strategic standpoint, which then translates into all the facets of what we do. Caitlin, let's look at your website, and you can kind of diagnose and tell us, why it's great and why it isn't.
Sure. So first of all, the value proposition is not very clearly positioned. It's under my name. And it just says, you can barely read it.
Can't read it. Yeah.
I make content make sense, which in and of itself does not make sense.
Well,
So-
and also, Caitlin, yeah, the lightness of it. We can get into this another time, but making your website ADA accessible,
Exactly.
that's probably not very much.
Oh,
And this
that's
is a good lesson in falling back on a template, because
on.
these were template settings.
Hold on, Elizabeth just said something really important. I want, Elizabeth, why in this day and age is it important to make your site, and what does it mean to make it ADA compliant, and why is
Well,
it important?
in 1991, I believe the United States passed the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that counts for internet as well. So when you have a website where people who have sight problems or hearing problems or other problems can't access it equally to the rest of the population, you're infringing on their rights, essentially. And there's no reason that it shouldn't be ADA accessible, since websites were created after the act was passed. So we just actually discovered a new tool called Accessiby. Was that it, Caitlin? We can find it, but it's a plugin that you can put on your website. So if someone has
Is that the one? Is that the one
yeah,
Punch
that's
gave
the one
us?
that Brian, that Punch gave us. So if you have someone on your website, they can, click a button and the website can be made accessible for them automatically. We just learned about this week, so bear with us. But we are in the process also of making our website more ADA accessible. And that, just includes, things as simple as putting alternate alt text on your images. If there's an image of you, it needs to say image of person X, so that someone clicking on it who has sight problems will know what's on your website. Anyway, so it's just making it more inclusive, and ultimately it's the moral thing and it's the legal thing to do.
Okay, Caitlin, what else about your site do you like and not like?
It is not targeted to a particular audience. It is just, it's essentially just a portfolio of work. I'm just like throwing an album of stuff I've done at you. You can figure out how you feel about it and what problems it solves. So in a nutshell, it's, this is the equivalent of just sort of putting your skills list on a website and leaving it at that. Like, here's what I do.
Let's look at Artisani. This
Yeah.
is the site. And I want to talk a little bit just before you dive into it, and then we're going to end really quickly. But Linda went through quite a process of not only just saying, hey, I want to work in law, but now she's really focused on, mid-market law clients. And she made a very conscientious decision in her practice to say, I'm letting go of all this other work so I could focus on law. And that's proved, and she's an online social media, person, and she's comfortable in that role. Not everyone is, but the work she's done online and the work she's done in focus has only just blossomed her business. I mean, she's as busy as she could be. So anyways, let's talk about her.
Yeah, absolutely. So the value proposition not only immediately gets the attention of the legal industry with the headline, accounting services designed for the legal industry. If you scroll down, you see accounting you can trust. Whether you run a 1-person firm or a 30-person firm, our team offers services to match the needs of your growing company. So she has identified immediately who she's talking to, given you at least some impression of the pain points that she can address. And really probably the only thing that's missing is, and even if you scroll down, it's probably there on the homepage, or reviews. Yeah, see, so there's reviews, validation from other people. And maybe the only thing I would add would be like what Karen brought up, case studies. Those are really, really good for people looking to research in depth a little bit more. Just the fact that you have them, is fantastic. If you can present it, on Linda's site, the place to put it would probably be the blog. But it again is up to your discretion. So
okay,
and she also, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Were you going to say something else?
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say we've got to wrap things up for the day. So
Yes.
I wanted to say a few things. Caitlin, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And I feel like we're going to bring more of this into our meetups, and we're going to get a little bit weedier. So we might do a whole session on value propositions and break that down, or other areas. And again, you know, what we're trying to do is help. I think I just want to go back and say what I feel like we're trying to do is help you facilitate a trusted referral, and be able to communicate your value proposition back to lawyers. That's really the goal here. So we will be doing this on a regular basis, whether we do it, you know, probably 2 to 4 times a year is my guess. A marketing focused LAP meetup. The second thing just to say is we recognize there are a lot of happenings in the LAP program. What we did was I kind of propped it up in 2018, 2019 in a very crude way. And Caitlin's come in and said, hey, we need to change it and make it more organized and make it more accredited, and you folks need better training materials. So we've revamped our LMS, and it's still wonky. So we're still in process, and we're just slow because we've got a lot of things to do and we're a small company. But this community is really of value to us. And I want everyone to know that over the course of the next year, and I know I said that a year ago, but I mean it because now Caitlin's here to help me do it. This program will get better structure, both in the training, the community, and engagement. So hang with us, please. We will.
And if you haven't already, please fill out the new survey, because that's what's going to go. That's what people who are looking for an LAP on our website are going to see about you. I know you've filled it out before. We
I
have
know
a more
it's
aligned.
such a pain. I know we're just being a pain in the butt, but we appreciate your patience. And I will say people are looking at that website. We've just redid it so it actually is easier to interact. And you know, we are sending your names out in our sales content to clients because they're asking for people for help. So hang with us. We're going to get better. I can guarantee you that. So anyways, it's 2 o'clock. Caitlin, thank you again for your time, and Elizabeth, your contribution. And Tracy, thank you so much for turning the Zoom on for all of us, because it would have failed miserably if you hadn't done that. So thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
I wish everyone a great week. I hope the rest of the tax season isn't too demanding, and we'll talk again in, I think, June. Take care, everyone.